Don Reeder again. Greg's behind the camera. We got a new machine. We call it the RPS 1000. Is that what we're calling it? Well, I just made that up. It's the RPS 1000. We call it the ultimate knife grinding machine. And we're going to show you a lot of features, a lot of reasons that we've developed this. Basically, all of our attachments that we've got so far will work on the older machines, but this is it's just a much more advanced product, and I'm going to show you why we've done what we've done and what we have done, if that makes any sense. The new machine has got 3 receivers. We'll go into detail about why that receiver is now there. It's mostly for future project or future attachments, but for right now, this is something that our customers have said they wanted from the very beginning. They want us to get rid of the hinges. It's more expensive, but we've gotten rid of the hinges. We got a safety lock here. I'm going to say this is our first production prototype. Some of this may change. The configuration of these things I'm still thinking about. So in the early production runs, we make some changes here. Won't change the function at all. Right now, the way it is you bring this clip up, it pulls a pin, you pull it, lock it down. Now that's good. You could use it that way. We got a safety lock on it here. If you want to lock it in position, you can. Now, I found some of our people asked us when we were building this configuration, they said, we'd like to lock it in between, in this position right here. We were at the Atlanta Blade show, and one of the guys that reminded me about that, turns out that is at the shop. So let me pull this out of here and just show you what we're talking about. The reason they want it to be able to have this adjustable in between positions is when they're doing work on the back of a knife or on a handle, where they're doing the decorative work back here, it's easier. You want to come over to the side here, Greg? It's easier to work the belt here, 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 here. In other words, come right down the spine than it is when you put it in the vertical position. Then you're working the notch. You can't see it very well, and you've got to go, you can't come across your body. You've got to step index and step up. So that is one of the reasons for it. There are other reasons. As everybody knows, I'm not a knife maker, I'm a machine builder. So I don't pretend to understand all the reasons for it, but our customers have said that they want that, so we've given it to you. All right? Now, the reason for the way we built this is we put bronze bushings in all of the rotating parts. We put bronze washers to take out, so that we can adjust any side play out of it in the movement of this. Now, what does that do for you? Well, if 10 years from now, one of these bushings gets loose, those bushings are available from us. They're also available from most anybody that sells bearings or oilite bronze bushings. So all you have to do is push one out, push one in, it's all good to go. And we've done that throughout this whole machine. Where we got wear points, we've used, like over here on the clamp handles, steel threaded inserts. Where there are wear points, we've used inserts. Where we've got wear holes, we've used bushings. For instance, up here we use shoulder bolts and a bushing in this hole. On this, we use a bushing in this hole. Now, all of this stuff, like I said, if it gets anywhere in it, those bushings are inexpensive, available from us, and you can simply push them out, push them in, and the machine is like brand new. Even back here, we've got the bearings. Some of this information is old. Some of the stuff does not come to me quickly anymore. So what they are is they're hardened thrust bearings. There's one here, there's one here. That way you can take the adjustment, just like a wheel bearing, you take the adjustment out. If you ever get any slack, probably won't, but if you do, and if you get excessive wear over a long period of time, they're replaceable, they're readily available. Okay, now I'm going to show you some setups that we've got on the new machine, and we're going to cut it off. I'm going to make the setup, and then we're going to cut back on, and we're just going to go through a series of different setups, different attachments that you can use on this machine. Now, 99% of them you can use on the old machine with 2 receivers. The reason for the 3rd receiver is we've got a 2-axis surface grinder right now, and we want to go to a 3-axis surface grinder. Now when that'll happen, I'm not sure, but we need that third receiver hole to accomplish what I want. It gives me more rigidity, it gives me more distance between these, and that's going to allow me to do some things that I want to do on that 3-axis surface grinder. Now again, people are going to ask when. I don't know. It took me 2 years to build the surface grinder. I'm going to show you in a little bit. So I can't give you a time estimate on that. But I do know it's needed. The other thing this is real handy for is when you go into horizontal position, you can use that third hole to hold additional contact wheels, small wheel attachments. In fact, what I'm going to do right now is we're going to cut off. I'm going to set this up with a couple of other things on the horizontal mode. We're going to be shortly coming out with some tables for the horizontal that are adjustable that you can move around. So looking for a lot of, what I'm trying to do is demonstrate to people why buy a reader grinder. I mean, come on, there's a lot of grinders on the market. We think ours is the best. I actually know it's the best, but I'm going to say I think it's the best. But everybody thinks theirs is the best, and they're going to tell you that. So why did I go over number one? This thing is light. You don't need a steel grinder. You just don't need one. They don't build airplanes out of steel because they don't need to make them heavy. I'm an old guy. I can take this on the bench we make, and I can pick it up and I can walk off with it. I can actually lift it myself if I need to. Not going to do it because not going to do it. You take my word for it, okay? At any rate, so we just don't need that much weight. It saves money when we go to ship it. And from a functional standpoint, as long as we take care of any wear problems that could occur on the machine that we do, there's no reason to make it out of a heavier material. We start out, you can buy a machine for as little as $595. That's the base machine. Go to our website, you can see it. Probably the best buy in the world. Quite frankly, they're expensive to make, and that is a bottom end price on that machine. Take a look at it. It comes with this whole machine, 2-hole machine with a hinge, without the idlers and the drive wheel, without the wheels. It starts out at $595, goes up a couple $100 with the wheels. Magic. We've changed. Now we got our new Rotary Platen. Now on our Rotary Platen, you have, let me release it. This is another nice feature of ours. You put the latch on when you're done retensioning it. You just push down, the latch pops out of the way. Very simple, but it works great. That way you got 2 hands to change the belts out with. Let me go ahead and put the tension back on here. On this, well, let me take it off. On this, you got, this rotates. If you rotate it this way, this is a 2.5-inch distance between these rollers. That's pretty firm. That belt is firm. Now, the next you can rotate it, that's 4 inches between this and here. That belt is more flexible. Now you go, I'm going to go backwards. Here, you got a little over 6 inches, and you can see that belt is much more flexible. That way, it works like a real firm slack belt. That's wonderful for doing things like flushing pins out in wood, and just taking the bump out of this blade. This belt is an old blade, old belt, and there it is. This right here, this part is much thicker than this belt. So you can see that's a very much worn belt. It's almost polishing belt. When this comes around, if you've got a piece of steel behind it, it gives you a little bump every time that hits. If you don't have a piece of steel on it, the thing is so flexible that when you push it back against it, it doesn't give you a nice flat grind. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it back on the same belt. See which way we're turning. I've got to turn it this way. Okay, slide it up. The fourth side. Didn't get to the fourth side. I'm going to show you right now. Okay, this is a shield that goes on here. I pulled it off so you could see what's going on inside of this thing. I recommend you never run this without this on it. And the reason is, if you get your finger up in there between that belt, it'll just take it off. It's like running a bandsaw or a table saw, anything else. If you stick your finger into what's happening, it's gone. That is, if I stick it in up here, I'm going to mangle my finger pretty good, but it's not going to chop it. You stick it in between that belt, it's going to hurt you, so don't. That's why we provide this guide to try and keep your fingers out of it. What we've got here is we've got a secondary, got a little platen with, in this case, this is a 440C plate on it. This is hardened 440C. I think it's going to be A2 later, but what happens is when you use this, even though this has got a bump, this, I don't know if you can see it, I can feel it. As you go back and forth on this, you can't feel that seam. This is a hardened blade, just a blade that's made for chopping stuff up around the shop here. But when you put this on and you put it in, it's nice and smooth. The rubber belt takes the bounce out of that. So that's why we've added it. So on our platen, you got 4 positions. Now this is an accessory to the platen, but that's it for the rotary platen. That's a short deal on that. Okay, we're going to put the small wheel attachment. There's been discussion about that. Incidentally, this extended, this is not, it comes to you about this long. This is my own personal, and I've done some experimenting with some other things. So this goes in here. What you want, the belt is about 1 inch over from this surface, so I give it about 1 inch to here. Let's put the belt over and drop our wheel in. And now we'll take and adjust it, take the slack out of it. Oops, well, I didn't have my tensioning arm on. Take it in, give it a little tension off, release the catch, rotate it to make sure that it's in the center. If it's not in the center, if it's centered up here, then move this back and forth. Loosen this up, take the tension off, and move it side to side so you're tracking in the middle when you're in the middle here, okay? One of the nice things about the way we designed our machine is all of our accessories allow you to move them back and forth to center them on the wheel, okay? It's true you can move them here, but why having it hanging all the way off the wheel just to center on the small wheel attachment? Now, I'll fire that up. You need to run these really slow. I'm going to move it over a little bit. This is a very small wheel. This bearing, if that's a 6-inch wheel, this is a 1-inch diameter. So this shaft, this bearing, runs 6 times as fast as that. That's a 3,200 RPM motor. 6 times that is 18,000 RPMs if I run it wide open. You can't run it wide open or you'll burn these little bitty bearings up. When you're using a small wheel attachment, especially the smaller it gets, you go down to a 1/4-inch shaft, you got to run it like 20%, because that means you're going to run up to 60,000 RPM. Well, you can't. Okay, at any rate, I'm going to shut it off. I'm going to show you how. With our unit, we don't charge you extra. If you want to get full use out of your machine, you could stick this on, okay? That levels this out, okay? That takes this level, makes the belt come in level at the top. But you see the bottom still got an angle to it. So I'm going to take a little of this slack out of it. Now I'm going to pop one here in here. Now, if you don't have enough, this will walk this out if you don't watch it. In other words, if it's parallel here, well, let me turn it on and see if it does. Turn it down. All right. This time it didn't do it, but sometimes if you don't rock this way, that shaft we pull out. Now if you see, you've got a full 180 degrees here. That's something we add in at ours, and we don't charge you extra for bits and pieces to attach. What I was saying about the angle is, if this bottom bearing, this bottom roller rolls out on you, then the way to take care of that is to cant this up just a little bit so it's cradled better in there. You still have the 180 degrees here. All right, that's a short little deal on our small wheel attachment. Okay, we're going to show you what our dual tracking mechanism, how you set it up, how it works, real quick. We've got a video on this, but this is the primary tracking method. It skews the wheel this way. The reason we do that is we don't like to impart a ramp to the wheel if it's unnecessary, because when you do that, when you put a load on it, it tensions the wheel and it tries to climb the ramp. That's why you get sideways movement with your belt. Now, our secondary movement is what's kind of more the traditional method, and that's ramping it up and down like this. The reason we have two is because this, while it's a more finite, a finer tracking method, it also doesn't have give you as much movement. In other words, you can run out of adjustment when you're simply skewing the wheel. I'm going to show you how this works. You can see this is relatively parallel here. We've got the wheel fairly flat. Let me try and stay out of it here while I turn it on. That's pretty parallel there. We're going to lock that down. These up here, this distance here and this distance here are pretty much the same. This is a little bit off the wheel. Now with a reader you can solve this problem several ways. You can loosen this up and you just bump that wheel over a little bit, but we're going to do it with tracking. We use the primary tracking. You can see we've got good tracking with it, but it's limited as to how much movement you can give it. We'll lock that down. The secondary method is a ramp, skewing the wheel up and down, arcing it. You can see that a small amount of movement gives you a lot of movement there. We're going to center that back up. Now, where is this important? Particularly when you're running in reverse. Let me turn it off here. Now this belt's a big old thick belt, probably run pretty good in reverse, but let's try it. Okay, since this is a very thick belt, all it did was move over about 1/8 of an inch. That'd be easy to adjust. You got a real loose out of bias belt, sometimes it'll run off like crazy, particularly in reverse, and it takes both movements to get the belt to track properly. Okay, we're trying to just give you a brief synopsis of what you can expect, accessories that are available for this machine. This is our surface grinding attachment. There's a full video on how to operate this thing. The thing's over 1 hour and 20 minutes long, so I'm not going to go into detail on that other than to say this is a 16 1/4 inch travel with a 12-inch chuck. Now we're going to cut, and I'm going to go to our new sword surface grinder, which is the 32 1/4 travel with a 24-inch chuck. So I'm going to change that out now. This is a 32 1/4 inch travel, and it's got a 24-inch chuck on it. Some sword makers claim that they need as much as 48 inches. That's not a problem. All we have to do is extend these. We can go as long, pretty much as long as you want, all the way up to 10 feet. I don't know why anybody would want that, but it takes, you have to custom make the chuck and custom make this, but we offer those. Now, you need to call for a quote on those because they're not in the catalog. They are available though. You have to special order anything over the 16 1/2 inch length. But this is your extended travel. In the future, we're going to be making attachments that are specifically for fullers to let us index the fullers, so you index it so you can swing it for doing a fuller. We're working on that project now along with some others, so probably put back into a vertical position, show how that looks. Okay. All right, another configuration here. We've gone back to the 16¼ inch travel, 12-inch chuck, and we put an 8-inch wheel on it. We've gone to a vertical position with the grinder and a horizontal position naturally with the surface grinder. Now what that allows you to do is that allows you to cut, put a small wheel attachment, say, and do fullers on like Bowie knives or anything you want up to that 12, 14 inches. Like again, you got 16-inch travel and a 2-inch wheel, so whatever you can get out of that. Now, how do you get your adjustment? When you're going in a vertical position, we've got a stop, work surface stop. Pull that out, okay. Now I'm not going to bother tightening that down. There's little button head screws there. You slide this out, tighten those up. Now you've got a surface that you could slide against so that your cut won't pull your knife or whatever out. Now if you've got a curve, then you need to slide a wedge in there so that you've got something supporting that knife if you don't have a nice flat surface. Now, how would you get your elevation on this? These are what we call pig's knuckles. We sell them as one, and these, we sell different length shafts to go with them. Now what a pig's knuckle lets you do is it lets you adjust this wheel up and down, but it also lets you swing. All right, I'm just gonna tensions off of that, pull this off and leave it there. You can loosen this up, loosen this. Now this allows you to move that wheel anywhere up to, show it down in there. It allows you to rotate this up to 90 degrees. I can't do it because I have interference here. Can we slide this? Oh, wait a minute. Let me loosen this up, pull it back. Now, you could slide this wheel. In other words, it gives you complete control over the orientation of the wheel. Now, right now, what I'm doing is I want it straight ahead. If I wanted to go, use this to hold a tooling plate, I could turn this 90 degrees and use that to grab a tooling plate so I could go up and down with it. So this can go either way. In other words, you could have a 90 degree or 180 degrees or anything in between. Now, how do you get your dimension from here to the center of the knife if you're hollow grinding? You release this, and this now rotates up and down. How do you get your elevation? This allows you to go from below the center of the wheel, from below the surface grinder. Now you can arc it up anywhere you want. So you can put the center of that hollow grind at any point. You can do this with this, or you can do it with a small contact wheel. In other words, you can see I get any elevation that I want on my knife as I come back and forth. Okay? All right, well that shows basically the function of this. I can also do the exact same thing. We can put a platen in here. So you got the platen in here, and you don't have to raise and lower the platen. You can just put it right here. But you can set it so if you're not doing a hollow grind, you can do a flat grind using this position. There's just untold amounts of combinations of what you could do with a compound surface plate. Remember, this thing tilts this way. In other words, it's tilting, skewing up, and it also skews this way. So it's up and in and out. So you can attain just any possible combination. Since it's a sign plate, you can put a known block in here once your angle is established. And if you want to repeat with that knife in perpetuity, you can always use that same shim here, and you'll always get that identical angle on your knife, the primary angle. Now, the same holds true of distal taper. This is a sign plate as well, so when you slide this out, once you establish it, you put a spacer in there, you keep that spacer, label it, and your distal taper will be repeatable every single time. You're doing cutlery, and if you have a very fine, you've just got maybe you're working with a 16th material, and you want to put a 20 thousandths taper over the length of it, then you might have, and maybe let's say that's over 8 inches to make it easy. This is an 8-inch sign, so if you want a 20 thousandths taper over 8 inches, you put a 20 thousandths shim, a feeler gauge under there. That would give you 20 thousandths over 8 inches. So once you establish what you want in there, it's repeatable from then on. Just keep a record of it. You can make exactly the same knife. You don't have to hunt and peck for it. It's done for you. Okay, well, I have a long video on the surface grinder, so I think that's all I'll do on that surface grinder. All right, something new we've got. 24-inch radius platen. Now, there's going to be some different variations of this. This, again, is the production prototype. So we're offering these. We offer them in mild steel, and also we'll offer them in A2 hardened. Right now, this is a mild steel. Of course, the A2 is going to be more expensive. We haven't priced it yet, and it's not on the website yet, but that's in production and coming soon. This is primarily for the guys that are doing cutlery and want a real shallow hollow grind on their cutlery. This is just a knife I've been fiddling with, so let me... Once you set the grind, you can see it's a very fine hollow grind. I'm going to take it and dip it in some water here. Woo, they got hot quick. And since that's a hardened blade, I don't want to take the hardness out of it, so at least I know when it's getting hot. It got hot. I accidentally put a little ding in it here when I was working with the sharpening attachment. I was working too far aft of the wheel, and I'm taking that out right now. You can see that or not, Greg. I got a little mark right here. I'm trying to get it kind of like this mark right here that I'm going to take out of both sides. All this is doing putting an extremely fine hollow grind on it. Now, if you're just doing a little bit of cutlery, probably this mild steel platen is going to be all you need, because I've ground quite a bit on it, on the mild steel. See, I'm getting rid of that mark. And I have yet to see any appreciable wear. And of course, you've got a full 8 inches to work. I'm sure Greg's going to cut a lot of this out, but because it's boring, but how about that?
What's the difference between the radius platen and a radius wheel?
Well, about the biggest wheel you can get is a 20-inch wheel, or a 24-inch wheel, which has got a 12-inch radius on it. This has got a 24-inch radius, so the radius is much more gradual, and on cutlery, a 12-inch radius would be too abrupt. You're just wanting to give this just the tiniest, you want to keep this real thin here when you're taking a good chopper. But again, this information is passed on to me, the guys that really know what they're doing on this, in this grinding. They asked me to make this, so I made it. So what I've done is I've just taken some of my wife's knives. In this case, this is a Hinkle, and she saw how it worked before I put this hollow grind in it. Worked pretty good. I'm almost done. But now that this is cross-section is so fine, you just slice potatoes or tomatoes or whatever you got. Super nice. Now you can see I've got the speed down on this. A lot of friction there. I don't want to crank it wide open. Some guys do. They just wear it out. If you start a wear in a spot like that, well, then move up. I'll come around to the other side one last time. That's a 24-inch radius platen. What we've done is we've just made this blade really thin right here. And, you know, it's going to get dull faster than a knife that's not as thin, but, you know, it cuts much better. So if you're a chef and you don't mind sharpening, just hitting your blade just a little bit every day, and knowing you're going to experience some loss over time, that real thin blade is real nice. All right, well, there's a 24-inch radius platen. Okay, we're just trying to, this video is to introduce the new quick flip machine with the 3 receivers and show the abilities of the machine and the attachments. And I went into a little bit about why I think you would buy a reader grinder instead of somebody else's. I got a letter from Ken Avery of Ken Avery Knives, and he did a review of our grinder, and we want to thank him very much for doing that. I've been looking and comparing 2x72 grinders for months. I looked at grinders by Bader, Travis Wirtz, AMK, Tactical, Reader Products, Northridge Tool, and many others. I like the Reader best based on overall value. It seemed like you got a lot of grinder at a very reasonable price. 2 things kept holding me back: the hinges and all the aluminum construction. I ended up taking an ABS bladesmithing class in Arkansas, and lo and behold, one of the grinders available for us to use was the Reader 2x72 grinder. The coolest thing was that there were grinders there from Bader, KMG, Uncle L's, and Burr King. So not only did I get to use the Reader, I got to compare it with a bunch of other grinders. For me, the Reader was hands down winner. Silk smooth, perfect tracking, adjustments, and super simple to operate. The machine was very stable and vibration free. So much for worrying about the hinges and aluminum construction. After returning home from class, I placed my order for a Reader grinder. I already had the motor and VFD, so I purchased the base unit with the 5-inch drive wheel and 2 2-inch platen wheels. It comes with a flat platen, work rest, 2 tooling arms, and of course a grinder. I also ordered a knife sharpening attachment and the hollow grind fixture. The site says that it will take several weeks for delivery, but I got mine in about a week and a half. Setup was super easy. However, I would recommend buying the stand for it. If you use the grinder in the horizontal position, I had to cut a hole in my workbench. The grinder runs quite well with the 1.5 horse that I purchased on eBay. Handles everything that I needed to. One of the really cool things you can do with the grinder is run in reverse for sharpening knives. The knife sharpening attachment works well, and the tracking wheel has 2 different adjustment points to allow the belt to track perfectly when running in reverse. The guys at Reader have really put some thought and a lot of engineering into this product. It's not just a copy of every other grinder. After owning the grinder for almost a year now, the aluminum construction has actually become a benefit, no rust. And the lighter weight of the aluminum chassis makes a difference after long hours of grinding. All is great, the 2x70 grinder, and a great value. I just ordered the Rotary Platen and the surface grinder. We'll update the article when I have some feedback for you. Thanks, Ken Avery. We will post this letter from Ken at the end of the video. Thank you very much. We appreciate your business.